and welcome to my new video. If you're new to my channel, hello, I'm Lex and this is Lost Falls. Today I'm going to be doing a natural rivers tutorial, kind of showing you how I go about giving my rivers a very natural appearance. And I'm going to start by just doing some terraforming to show you, to illustrate what I mean. And then I'm going to run over to Lorian's Dream so I can show you what that looks like in practice for me, how my rivers there reflect my process. Before I get started terraforming, I kind of want to give you some insight about how I look at natural rivers. I think one of my first tips for you is that you want to make sure the river varies in width. You can see with this one that it's wider in some places than it is in others, and I think that's pretty necessary for achieving the natural look because rivers do that. They're not going to be the same width all the way around. Also, I just want to emphasize that I'm not trashing intentionally man-made rivers at all. It literally just depends on your island aesthetic. So this video is more for people who want the natural winding aesthetic for their rivers versus people who maybe have urban cities with very straight rivers. Another tip that I want to get out of the way just before I start terraforming is that you need to make sure the land and water are curving like this, beyond just the width. You want to make sure that it's uneven. The edges of the river make the river, that is the river structure. So make sure you're not making it too straight. So I'm just going to start here. I want to connect these two segments of the river that are forking off. So I'm going to make this where I'm standing into a mini island, and I want this to be pretty thin, this little loop of river that I'm creating. So it's going to be very thin and very curvy so that it looks very natural. As you can see, I'm curving it to the left and then I'm gonna hang to the right. That way I do get this natural looking curve. I've got to give myself space to make that movement. Now I'm going to be moving to the right. I could have just made a diagonal river shape in order to connect these two pieces, but it wouldn't have matched the vibe of the rest of the river because the river here does curve. It is choppy and not super angular, and so that just wouldn't have looked very natural to the island. As you can see, I'm trying not to leave any sharp edges. I'm trying to make it a very smooth transition from land to water. So I've inadvertently kind of also given you a tiny island tutorial. This is how you can make water look natural around tiny islands if you want to incorporate those on your island. I could easily fit a tree or two on that mini island and make it aesthetic. This is just going to be a temporary build for Lost Falls, so I'm not going to decorate the little island. But I hope it was helpful to see sort of how I terraform, how I make the water look natural. And I'm going to show you better decorated examples on Lorian, so we can go ahead and head over there. So here we are at Lorian's Dream. I'm just going to walk around and show you some of my favorite water terraforming here and how I managed it. I do have two south-facing river mouths, so as you can see with this one, I sort of just made it seem less invasive by putting waterfalls right here so I wouldn't have to guide the water up and through my island. So yeah, that's kind of how I worked the south-facing river mouth. And you can see here where I'm standing that I did make the edges curved, even though the water where the bridge was had to be straight. And I do the same thing here. It's very rigid right where the bridge is, but it curves immediately to the sides. This is another example. None of this water was here on my original island map. This was all made by me. So you can see how I managed to incorporate the diagonal bridge while still making this feel like a natural river area. I just guide it from this waterfall here at the bottom of the screen to the one that's on the other side of the bridge. And so I just used diagonal and curved land. And this is a really good example of different widths, because you can see it's very wide where the bridge is, but it comes from literally just one block of waterfall, and it gets smaller, like more narrow at the end as well. The campsite is another good example of width difference. You can see it's thinner here where it curves and then wider as it goes out towards the waterfall. And I do also incorporate these little floating islands with flowers. I think they add depth to the water, they make it feel natural. That might even be like an extra bonus tip, to add little floating islands with plants. This water terraforming right here is just to the right of resident services, and it's actually the first actual water terraforming I did. It leads to the south-facing river mouth. You can see on my maps on my Instagram page how the water transformed here early on, but you can see how I varied the width a lot and made it very curvy, and that's kind of why it looks so natural. And I do have this one sharp edge where the tulips are planted, but it still doesn't really take away from that water. And just as another example, this is entirely made by me. None of this water was originally here, and I used the bridge, but it doesn't feel like this is like a straight canal or anything. It almost feels like a crescent moon shape, and so I just did that by curving the water. One last really good example of combining varying width with curved land and water would be this area by my museum. You can tell just by looking at it how much the width of this river varies as you jump across the different mini islands. You can see the flow of the river really well here, and I think it emphasizes how dynamic I made this area just by curving the land, adding mini islands, just incorporating these tips I've given you. So I'm just going to take a second to run back through here. Thank you so much for watching. I really genuinely hope that this tutorial was helpful and that you'll feel more confident in making your own natural rivers. Keep an eye out because my next tutorial video is going to be about making natural waterfalls so that you can incorporate more dynamic waterfalls in your terraforming. Last but not least, we have a special guest star for our outro today. Please welcome my little brother who really wants to participate.
Thanks for watching and have a great day.